there. Welcome to Vancouver Actors Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Coleman. We have created this podcast as a means to diversify, unify, and strengthen the actors community here in our wonderful local industry. We'll have different guests come on from different paradigms and different peer sets in our groups, and we're going to share some of the experiences that some of us have had from every level of development, from the newest actors to those of us that have maybe had an opportunity to have been around a little longer and maybe spend a little more time on set or in the sound studios. One of the recurring things that I found early on in my career was that if I came from a place of authenticity, there was never ever any hesitation from those that have had success before me to share some of their information or skill sets or ideas to allow me to reach the same levels of success or more. And hopefully this podcast shares some of that with everybody else here, because I really do firmly believe that if we have a more informed, better educated, more confident community or base of talent to choose from, more productions will come here. We're already one of the largest destinations in the world for film and television, but the more we diversify and strengthen our talent pool will increase the opportunities for us to not only see more roles, but hopefully bigger roles, and perhaps even start generating more work ourselves out of Vancouver, British Columbia. So there's a lot of different things we're going to work on and go through in the podcast. One of the things I'd like to do right out the gate is invite you to send us your ideas, because I never have a shortage of things to say, as anybody who knows me can attest to. But if you have something you'd like to know, or if you have something you'd like to discuss, or if you'd like us to have a guest, I would love for you to send us your questions or your thoughts. You can send it to our producer, Lydia Rimmer, at storyinstitute.ca. So that's Lydia L-Y, why? Because we love her, D-I-A-R-I-M-M-E-R at storyinstitute.ca, and she'd be more than happy to receive your questions and feedback or thoughts, positive feedback. So we're going to go through a few things here today, again, to just kick things off and hopefully increase our level of confidence in the audition room right away, and maybe shift our paradigms or the way we see ourselves in various aspects of this process. So one of the things that we like to do here is to talk about changing your audition success rate to 100%. And it's a difficult thing to say, because I think a lot of people's initial instincts are that's an impossible success rate to have. Nobody auditions with a 100% success rate. But I would actually say most people I know that have had a level of success have a success rate of 100%. And the whole thing is you need to shift your ideas on what a success rate is. If you are defining your success rate as did I book the role or not, then yeah, that's a near impossible success rate. There's only one actor that I know in the history of film and television that has that, and that's Eddie Murphy, because he auditioned for Saturday Night Live at 18 years old, and then he never auditioned again. So he has a true, pure 100% audition success rate, but almost every other actor in the world, and I would probably bet money that every other actor in the world has had to audition several times and not had success. So there can be 1,000,001 reasons we don't book a role. It can be everything from we're too tall, we're too short, we're too good looking. Those are the ones I like to use. But there's a lot of different reasons that we may or may not. Maybe we just didn't have the right energy, or maybe somebody else just had a different something that worked better for this project. So to define success as did I book the role or not, well, that would suggest that every time something was booked, only one actor was good enough to do it. And I think if we think logically, the reality is there should always be several actors who could do it. We just all bring a different flavor to the situation and a different element of what our own person is. So on any given day, there should be several people who could do the role, but only one of us ever gets to do the role. So how do we define success in the audition room? What I would offer as perhaps a new way of looking at it is, did you do what you meant to do? Did you do what you meant to do? Did you feel the performance served the story? And were you capable of direction? And that's about it. Because that's all we can ask for. If you do that every single time, if every single time you walk into an audition room and you're truly, sincerely able to honestly assess whether or not you served the story and whether or not you were able to not only understand, but to effectively apply the direction, then I would suggest that counts as 100% success rate. If we try to do this any other way, we are going to absolutely kill ourselves. It is far too hard to say the only time I did good is if I booked the role. The reality is you should do good every single day. If you make every single one of your auditions the big one day it will be. And then hopefully it is time and time and time again. So let's go through a few of the things that you can control. Because to say, what do casting directors like, or to ask what do casting directors like, is a really difficult question to ask, because that would be like saying what do people with brown hair like to eat in their taco. It's a subjective thing, and everybody is going to have a different idea about what makes a story work or what their process is. And I think it's our job as the actors, where we're just here to serve the story and to bring in an interpretation or a representation of the text and the idea that was presented by the producers and the writers. I think the only thing we can ask of ourselves is to supply the casting directors and the production companies with a performance that serves the story. And I think that is, again, how we define success. So let's ask ourselves, what can we owe every single casting director, knowing that they'll all have subjective differences in terms of how do they feel about props, or what do they feel about buttons at the end of a scene, or there's a million and one different conversations we've had forever. But I think one of the consistent things we can say is there are probably 4 pillars that we owe every single audition we have. Number 1 is be on time. Be on time. We have a saying around here, to be 15 minutes early is to be on time is to be late, and to be late is inexcusable. So be here 15 minutes early and be ready to go. That doesn't mean socialize, that doesn't mean make this the catch-up thing. You can always grab a coffee with the other actors in the room after the audition is done. But when you're in the audition room, in the days when we are actually in audition rooms, as soon as you sit down, you should really be there and mentally focusing and getting yourself grounded and into the work, because that's what you would do on set, and that's the expectation we should have in the audition room. Next, I would say is be efficient. If it takes you 20, 30 minutes to get warmed up emotionally into a scene, unfortunately casting doesn't have time for that, and often we wouldn't have time for that on set either. So you have to find ways to create different moments before, or triggers or personalizations that allow you the emotional authenticity and the honesty that a scene deserves in a much more effective, efficient amount of time. Next, I would say just be professional. Don't try to be interesting. Don't try to be engaging. Just be interested. Just be engaged. Just be focused. Be there to serve your story. Okay, it's never about us. I know a lot of times actors want to make the number one thing we do as a definition of success. Did I get my words right? The amount of times I've heard an actor say, I don't know, isn't it great? I missed a line. I think I messed up. There have been scientific studies that only 7% of communication is verbal. 93% of it was physical, it was tone, it was all these other things that factored in. So if you messed up a line, well, you might have lost a point or two on 7% of the audition, but there's so much more that was going on when you're trying to serve the story, so we have to keep that right. So in addition to being on time, being efficient, the other thing is you have to be professional. Come in, do your job, know how to serve the story, and know how to make everybody that thought you should be there today look smart. That's the agent, that's the casting directors, that's everybody that thought, yeah, we've only got so many spots to fill. I think this person's going to bring in the work, they're going to do their work, and they're going to be prepared, and they're going to be capable of direction, which is the 4th and final pillar that we owe all casting directors. Just be capable of direction. Be careful not to fall into the trap of just nodding your head and be willing to take direction. The idea of being willing to take direction is much different than being able to apply direction. So make sure that when somebody gives you feedback in a scene and they want to see it a different way, make sure you really understand what they're asking and make sure you're applying it. I find an effective tool is to perhaps sometimes use the same words or ideas they've said to you, but in your own words, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And those are the 4 things that we can basically ask of ourselves for every casting director. Every casting director is going to have subtle things that they like different from each other, and I think that's one of the wonderful subjective elements of our craft, that not only are our stories diverse, but our talent is diverse. The subjective ideas of our casting directors, producers, directors, our fan bases, they're all diverse, and I think that diversity and inclusion of all the ideas is one of the things that makes our art form so effective. So I wanted to give you one special tool today that hopefully will give you a taste of more to come. Our next episode, we're going to show you how to effectively and efficiently break down an audition and how to do it so that you can deliver a successful audition 100% of the time. So in order to do that, we want to be able to create emotional authenticity in our work. And some acting coaches will refer to this as having like a strong personalization or a moment before. I'm familiar with using the phrase an assertion or a personalization. So a personalization would be to look at a scene and to find a moment in your life where you had similar goals with similar stakes or risk reward, similar relationship in terms of the essence of the scene that you can relate to, so that you are performing from a place of honesty. Now, once you have all that, there's an exercise, a very simple exercise that you can use in the audition room to trigger that personalization once you've done all the work in terms of making sure that it authentically lives in your body. And sometimes, again, with the personalization, it'll be things like different songs I know with different people in my life that have passed, or different moments of history. Different music will help me connect to different events, or different smells, or different just real, honest, truthful, meditative thoughts where I allow myself to be immersed in a memory will help personalization become more authentic. But now once I'm in the audition room, I don't always have the time. Again, one of the 4 pillars is to be efficient. I don't always have the time to ask the casting director, hey, do you mind if I think about my granddad for the next 45 minutes and listen to this soundtrack? You guys are free to watch. That's not always gonna fly. So we use what's called an assertion. An assertion is a simple sentence that allows you to put yourself in the right emotional state of mind, and that is, I am, and then you insert the character's name, and the world is, and how you feel about the world in that moment in the scene. So it might be something like, I am Harry Potter, and the world is so frustrating right now. Now, again, you would never say that out loud. It would look ridiculous in the audition room, but you could say that over and over in your head until you have the right emotional mindset or authenticity in your feelings to properly deliver that. So those are little tiny flavors of the assertion and the personalization, and we're going to go into that a little bit more detail next week or next episode in what we call the Great Opera. So there's 1,000,001 things that an actor can learn to make their performances strong, believable, authentic, accessible, have universal themes that we can all relate to. We've broken down 10 different ideas that we feel if you do these 10 things, it's not all you need to know, but it would be impossible to have a bad audition. It would be impossible to not serve the story if you didn't do those 10 things. So we're going to do that in our next podcast, where we introduce that element of the process. And over the course of this program, we're going to have different guests come in and different perspectives, from directing to producing to various series leads to people brand new. And we'd like to create an opportunity for this to be something we all collectively do. So please, again, share your thoughts with Lydia at Lydia Rimmer at storyinstitute.ca. We'd love to get your thoughts or questions, and we'll hopefully be able to answer a bunch of them here on a segment at the end of each podcast. And our goal, again, is to strengthen, diversify, and create a greater sense of inclusion for our people, because we really are one of the most, we're one of the stronger cities in the world for film and television, and you've seen countless actors that got their start here and have gone on to bigger careers down in Los Angeles, all around the world. And the feedback we consistently get when we're on set is that this is a group of people that people like to work with on and on again with in terms of cast or crew. And we just want to create this podcast to further develop and enhance and strengthen our local community. So that's all we're going to do for today. This is our very first podcast. This is our first episode. We're going to get much more diverse. We're going to have a lot of different elements in terms of exercises and skill sets and interviews and guests. And that's what we're going to do each week. I'm going to give you one last thing. This is something that you can think about for next week. And this is an exercise I do to help myself find out what the story is really about, or how do I find that I'm in the right ballpark or the right zone as I get into what we'll describe later as the great opera. And it's something called the essence exercise. So the essence exercise would be to read the scene through a couple times and try to figure out what is the essence of the scene. Is this have you been betrayed by your best friend? Is this experiencing your first kiss? Is this where you've discovered that you're not as great as you thought you were? Or whatever the case may be. You find a way to summarize it in a word or a phrase or a sentence or two, and you find out the essence of the scene. The next thing you would do is you would personalize it, and you would say, okay, the essence of the scene is X. Have I ever had a moment in my life that had a very similar set of feelings or stakes or ideas or relationships? And then that would be the second stage of the essence exercise, which would be personalize. And then the third part of the exercise is what we call fantasize. And what I would do is I would reflect on the essence. I'd find that moment in time where I personalize it, and then I would just sit by myself, reflect on that moment, and I would fantasize, what do I wish I could say? What do I wish I could tell myself or tell another person? What do I wish I could do right now to properly articulate how all of this makes me feel? Perhaps it's a scene where I'm betrayed by my best friend, and I reflect on a moment where I perhaps have felt betrayed by a best friend. I might sit there and close my eyes and just over and over and over again, like a mantra. Again, it can just be done by yourself. You don't have to do this in a group setting. And just, I needed you. I really, really needed you. And you just do that over and over and over again. And you'll find what it does is it creates a trigger or a catalyst. And when you're in the audition room, it becomes much more efficient and effective when you're sitting in the chair and you've only got a couple minutes before you go in, as opposed to casually socializing with the other actors and asking who's been auditioning for what and what are you up to this holiday season or whatever the case may be. If you just sat there and reflected on that fantasy sentence or idea and you reminisced, which would be the fourth thing. So essence, personalize, fantasize, reminisce. And if you sat there and just reminisced on that thing, you'll find that you will find a much easier way to ground yourself and your performance and to connect to the authentic emotions required for that audition. And you'd be amazed at how much easier it is to go and serve a story when you're already authentically in that proper emotional state of mind, state of heart, state of soul, all of it. If you're there, it just makes it easier for you, and then you become a better reflection for the casting directors who submit that tape onto producers and production. So that's it. That's a start for the Vancouver Actors Podcast, Episode 1. We'll have lots more coming your way. We thank you for watching or listening, whoever you've taken this in, and we'll see you all soon.